You're live. Hi, my name's Anthony AC, and this is our Team 2 project presentation. And we're going to show some code topics, but first we're going to do a quick site walkthrough done by Liz. Take it away, Liz.
Thanks, Anthony. Okay, this is our home page of our site, and I'll start with add ingredient. So if you want to add an ingredient, you choose a type, and then you can choose whatever you want. And I chose flour, and it already exists. Or you could do add recipe, and you can add anything you want. Add tacos to the type. I won't go through the time it takes to go through everything, and then you submit it, and that adds it to our list of recipes, which is right here. And you can search for a recipe as well. So I want to search for an American recipe, ingredients that have cheese in it. And did I do something wrong?
You had to select what type of cheese.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Cheese, cheddar cheese, search. And there we go. We have 3 recipes with cheese. So this is our site. So now I'll turn the time back over to Anthony for our portions of what we did.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Liz. So I'm going to talk about what I worked on extensively, and that was the back-end side of things. And basically, this is the controller, the recipe controller, and this just has the functions needed to request data from the database. And so basically, each time they add in a recipe that's saved onto our data, onto our database, and then there's a lot of methods that basically are calling that data. There's also, you can see, we can get ingredients by all the ingredients by type, and so forth. And so the back end is basically used to load up HTML forms and data from the database. And so this is basically the end that is basically responding to all of the AJAX calls. So they'll be like calling to this function right here, loading recipes, and then it'll send back this data into this view. And so yeah, and Riley's going to be talking about some of the AJAX functions in the JavaScript script.
Yeah, so AJAX is really important to our site. We used it a ton for all of these menus, basically to fill in the data without having to reload the page. And one example of that is here in the form validation .javascript, and we use AJAX through most of the application. But in this case, verify ingredient, we had all the variables lined up, and basically the purpose of the function is to verify whether the ingredient exists or not. And so it runs through the code, and then it shoots it to the back end PHP, like Anthony was talking about. And after it decodes the JSON, it basically says if it exists or if it doesn't, and then we're able to work from there in order to utilize it in the list or to put it in the list from there. So.
All right, cool. Thanks, Riley. Now Rachel's going to be talking about some of the JSONs and JavaScript objects that we created for the use of the site.
Thanks. So we use JSON in a couple of our functions, but specifically I will show for adding ingredient. So there's an array called ingredient, and it just has a bunch of ingredients. And just like it was shown previously, the different ingredients and then the measurements and so forth. In this function here, we're getting the value based on what the user puts, and we created var ingredient JSON, and it strings the input, and then we created a parameter, and then, as explained before, this is how it all goes through. And we also used it specifically in it's a long way, an add recipe, and it's the same concept when you're adding the recipe. The name of the recipe, the type, the steps, the list, and we stringified it. I made that word up. Anyways, and then we're able to use JSON to string the recipe and hook it onto our database, and then as well as push it out to show all the recipe when you're searching. And Blake will talk about CSS animations.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about mostly the sidebar here and some of the animations that we're using for these 4 buttons here, which is the sidebar. So as you can see, when you hover over them, they enlarge and change color. And as you look inside the CSS we used, you can see here under the sidebar button, when you hover, it will change the scale. And so that's what's causing this right here, is when you hover over them. And then when you click on them, I will show that real quick inside the sidebar.php. These are the buttons where they're being created: the add ingredient, add recipe, search for recipe, and list of recipes. It's calling these 4 functions here, and those are loading the forms dynamically onto the web page. So I'll show you that real quick. So when we click add ingredient, it will slide that onto the screen without having to reload the page, and then we can see that form to access the database and change it that way. And we can see that here, the slide in down, that's what these are doing. Those are changing those over to or sliding it in dynamically, changing the HTML using JavaScript and DOM manipulation. So then you can see it does the same thing for all of them, creates the form for whatever button we're clicking. And there's that.
All right, cool. Now Ben is going to be talking about one of the HTML forms and kind of the thought process in creating the forms.
We use HTML and PHP to represent the user interface to the user. And we just use a div element, and we include a form tag to create an HTML form for the user input. And as we put in the input, we just use an unordered list, and then we list them one by one. And if we see here, we have a select, and as we do the type, this calls the AJAX. And the submit button, since it's a form, uses JavaScript. And it's very simple. So we just have unordered list, and we list them by type as we use HTML, and together with AJAX and JavaScript to make the call.
All right, cool. Now Elizabeth's going to be talking about the CSS of the site. And all right, take it away, Liz.
Okay. For the CSS part, of course, it's all the designing. Probably the biggest challenge for me was this background, getting it to, when we have add recipe, getting it to scroll or not scroll with it. And then you can see when it changes, there's still a little white flash that I couldn't figure out. But the biggest part was getting it so it will work on all sizes. So as we go smaller, this adjusts to the size. And then if it gets really small, I made a scroll bar for these things to go across. And then bigger. And the code for that, I just used the app media only screen, and position, and I used a lot of percentages on things too, so that it would just always be at a certain percentage based on what we did. And that's pretty much it.
All right, thanks, Liz. So yeah, awesome work, guys. And so talking about the scope of our project, we stayed within the scope of our project. We actually met all of our project goals. There is a database that holds all the recipes. Our app is able to add recipes and add ingredients into the database, and the user can search for recipes by the ingredients, just like was shown before. I can, search, let's put in beef, and I can find all the recipes that have beef. And so, and kind of an added thing, and we can also actually search, we can rate all of the recipes as well. That was also part of our project scope, project deliverables. And so we reached all of we stayed within our project scope, and we were actually, we managed to reach it. So I'm actually pretty happy with how the site turned out, and I'm actually really, happy with the look of the site and just how everything came together, and everybody was able to work on each one of their individual parts, and everything came together. So now I just want to, turn the time over to everybody and just put in, what they're most proud of the site. So, yeah, who would like to go first?
I can go first and keep the order up. This is Riley, by the way, and I think it looks great overall. I helped to contribute a little bit to the design of the recipe. I guess the outcome right here, where you've got the different recipes and the ingredients and the ratings. So I'm proud of that.
This is Rachel. I think what I'm most proud about, the fact that I'm able to kind of figure out Jason, was that this small idea that I was like thinking of proposing. I didn't think it was gonna be. I thought it was gonna be a hard app to do originally, but like our group members have been like amazing. Especially Anthony. He's like, we got this. We can totally do this. And I was just like everyone like did their part, and like we like worked together. So that's something I'm proud of, because it could have been a difficult project or app to create, but we just had a lot of people willing to help and put it together, and it was organized.
Okay, so this is Blake. The part that I'm most proud of, and the part I think is the coolest, is especially for having it kind of on the web, it doesn't go to a lot of different pages. I like how the app kind of stays on one page. You can always see the 4 buttons, and no matter what you click on, it just brings in the form. Don't have to go to a new page, doesn't reload the page, it just pops it in and out. And I think that's awesome for now, especially a mobile app. You're going to have to load the page over and over each time, and I think that's one of the cool parts and one thing I really like about apps.
This is Ben, and one thing I enjoyed was working on the search for recipe with Anthony, and to be able to call the AJAX and to see JavaScript in action, and especially the interrelation of PHP and HTML5, and to be able to have the form that the user will interface with the app. And it's just a neat experience to be able to do that. Initially, when Anthony assigned me to do the search for recipe, I was just overwhelmed by it. But I'm glad that we have some good team members that can help one another and to be able to pull this off.
This is Liz, and for me, it's that we worked as a team, and we had good team members, and it came together really well. I think it looks really good, but I don't think I've ever been part of a team that's turned out where I wasn't doing all the work or something, where I felt it just wasn't right. It was a good group, and I think it came together far better than it exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, thanks guys. No, it was an awesome app to work on, and everybody turned out. Everybody worked on everything, so it's an awesome team project. So yeah, basically everybody's role, what they presented on, was what they worked on, and everybody, because they're all interconnected parts, we all helped out each other, but what each person presented on was what they were mainly focused on. So the app turned out to be awesome, and we're really happy with the results. So this is our team project presentation for Team 2. I hope you enjoyed it, and have a good one.